Gun ownership is on the rise nationwide, and with the biggest jump being among Black people, some of them have started gun clubs. WXXI's James Brown met a few of them.
Tucked between rows of corn and rural western New York Road sits the Firing Pin, a busy Genesee County gun range that's home to RAFA, the Rochester African American Firearms Association.
We say this in our firearms trainings all the time. Every day isn't a gun day.
That's Paul Adele, a certified firearms instructor. He founded RAFA about a year ago. His group provides gun and self-defense training mostly to African Americans, like myself.
The firearm is the last resort, and that's what we teach people. The best thing to defend and kind of combat the violence is using the mind and using the heart, and sometimes using the mouth too.
But for me, that day was a gun day. It started with a waiver and a crash course on firearm safety. Adele told me it was a RAFA tradition to recite the rules beforehand. Always treat every gun as if it's loaded. Always point the gun in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Always know your target and what's beyond it.
Yes.
I'm sorry for sounding like a news guy.
Hey, you're a news guy.
Minutes later, like a quarterback's throwing motion or a point guard's jumper, Adele advised me on the importance of repeating my approach with every shot. A half hour or so later, I got the hang of it. I even put a picture of the shot up target on my Instagram. And if data is any guide, moments like these are happening around the country. A lot. Gun sales have grown steadily throughout the decades, but have surged in the last 18 months for everybody. But the biggest jump is among Black people.
We're up about 60%, roughly 58 to 60% increase in Black folks buying guns.
That's Philip Smith. By trade, he's a software engineer. About 7 years ago, he founded the National African American Gun Association. With around 40,000 members, it's believed to be the nation's largest Black gun group.
The pandemic was the game changer because that made people that were even anti-gun give me a call and say, Philip, what gun do I need to buy? Because I think there might be mob violence, there might be a shortage of food, there might be short of resources. I don't know if people are going to come through our neighborhood. We will have lawlessness in our community, so I need to buy a gun.
The last year and a half has seen rapid change. Lockdowns, curfews, mask mandates, civil unrest, and a spike in violent crime in cities across the nation. In Monroe County, homicides and shootings are at their highest levels in at least 10 years. The city of Rochester saw its first riot in half a century. And there were months of protests over the death of Daniel Prude, a Black man who suffocated while in police custody. Concerns about violence led to one of RAFA's first members' decision to join the group. Her name is Jasmine Barksdale. She says she was once afraid of guns, but decided to learn about them for her daughter's sake.
And I want to be able to protect her. I don't want to have to wait for someone else to come and advocate for me or be able to protect my home. I need to be able to do that myself.
Barksdale's not alone. Applications for gun permits in Monroe County are up dramatically. As of September, the county clerk's office reports a 168% increase year over year. Back at the Firing Pin, business is booming. When I visited, regulars say the range was short on materials like targets. Paul Adele says all of this is because people are now more aware of their vulnerability, and that likely plays a role in the growth of his group. But he insists that Black gun groups aren't a fad, but rather the latest incarnation of a rarely acknowledged American tradition.
For a long time, it's been a very silent group, but it's always existed. And I think because of organizations like RAFA, people feel a little bit more secure in embracing that.
James Brown, WXXI News.
After a tense standoff with Rochester police, protests continue demanding justice for Daniel Prude, who suffocated in police custody in March. WXXI's James Brown has more.
After nearly 24 hours of protesting at City Hall, Rochester police had enough.
This is the Rochester Police Department. Employees and citizens need to access City Hall.
Protesters said Tuesday that they intended to occupy Rochester City Hall until their demands are met. Chief among those demands is Mayor Lovely Warren resigning for allegedly covering up Prude's death. He suffocated in police custody in March, dying a few days later. Demonstrators blocked off the street and all the entrances. They marked the building with red handprints and covered the doors with wanted signs for Warren, the officers involved in the incident, and other local officials. On Wednesday morning, Rochester police attempted to clear the street, arresting 16 people. Organizer Ashley Gant says people were sleeping at the time, and there were children present. A tense standoff followed. Police with clubs and riot gear appeared. It ended with conversations between police, Veritas Christi Minister Myra Brown, and Gant.
So we're trying to work a compromise until I speak to the chief and the mayor. I'm going to ask you to just move your folks back just to the corner of Church and Convention so we have some space.
You guys arrest the killers that killed Daniel Prude. That is why we're here.
Let's take care of what they're
Minutes later, Brown talked to interim police chief Mark Simmons on the phone, and they came to a compromise. Police agreed to let the protest continue on the sidewalks after a cleanup. But Brown says the police's approach Wednesday shows how much they need to change.
We need redesign of this entire policing system and how it functions in a community, and particularly in our community, but not just ours. I think communities across America.
Protesters tell WXXI News that they did lose some things during the clearing. The agreement allows for protesting on the sidewalks as long as traffic and access for the building are not blocked. James Brown, WXXI News.
WXXI's James Brown is joining us now. He is at School 45 on Clifford Avenue. And James, what's going on there? What are you seeing now?
Oh, the streets went from empty to packed. We're seeing buses lining up, dropping off students, parents walking students to the door. It's been really, really busy over the last 15 to 20 minutes or so. I spoke with a couple of parents who were like, they were rushing their kids to the door. They were really happy to get their kids in classrooms this year.
Well, I know you spoke to School 45 Principal Rob Snyder earlier about what school will look like this year. As I alluded to, some restrictions are still in place, obviously, to try to contain the spread of COVID-19. What will that mean?
Absolutely, Beth. He explained that things definitely won't be exactly as they were, but he wants it to get closer to normal. He says that he's optimistic that things will be a bit easier for students and teachers despite some of the new rules that are in place.
So we want to make school feel as quote normal as possible for them. We want it to go back to the way it was before. The cafeteria looks a little different. The ways we eat breakfast is going to feel a little different. But overall, we're going to put our masks on and we're going to hunker down and collaborate in the classrooms and get back to work.
Yeah, I spoke with an older student, a high schooler. She felt like she wasn't able to interact with her other classmates the way she could have in prior years. How do you foster that in social distance? It seems like there could be difficulties there.
Yeah, certainly. I think wearing masks, right? We recognize that wearing a mask is a major safety protocol that allows our students to, I think, interact more than we thought a year ago.
Hello and welcome to 5 Things. It's November 27th, 2022. Go Bills. Every week we take a question, an idea, or concept and go deep. In this week, we start on a mountain in Colorado.
That's where I came from. I started out somewhere way down there. And here's the trail.
That's Jason Colo. He's from Cleveland. Jason and his regular climbing companion, Oliver the Border Collie, are climbing down Mount Massive.
You ready to go, huh? All right, go on.
He's a landscaper and a lifelong hiker. His Twitter biography ends with living outside, always. We'll hear more from Jason in a bit. If you search 14ers or mountains above 14,000 feet on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you'll find thousands of videos like Jason's.
6 people have died doing this. Died climbing 14ers in Colorado.
Yeah.
You're aware of this?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm aware of it. I'm not saying it doesn't bother me. I don't want to die. But I know if I slip or fall or get hurt, there's a very good chance you could die, especially because I go in Colorado, I go alone with my dog, and it's just me and him, and I have my GPS and I have my National Geographic maps. And, if you're at the top, you get cell phone service, but when you're down in the thick of it, there's just nothing. You have no service. There's no, GPS. There's really nothing when you're in the woods heading up.
If you think of a city of 300,000 and only 6 people dying, that would be a very, very safe place.
Right.
But in a city or in a community of 300,000, those folks who are dying aren't putting themselves in peril. I would argue.
Yeah, but I don't, right. I agree. I mean, you are putting yourself in a sticky situation. But you go prepared, but you never think you always think today's going to be a good day, I guess. You never think today is the day where, I'm going to get hurt, or I'm going to fall, or a big rock's going to land on my head, or, you don't go with that mindset.
Mary Louise Kelly, welcome to the program.
Thank you, James. So happy to be with you.
Another very interesting moment from your book. I've never been catcalled. I'm a total novice at it.
There's still time, James.
Maybe it'll happen today. What's the experience like?
When you're 20-something women, men turn and look, and they wolf whistle you. And if you had told my 20-something self that I would miss that and admit it publicly, she would have told you I'd gone bananas. I think what I was trying to write about and wrestle with was how surprised I have been by how very invisible a woman of 50 can suddenly feel.
Will Shorts, welcome to 5 Things.
Thank you, James. Good to be here.
How do you feel about the term puzzle master?
Well, it's a nice term. It was given to me by Leanne Hansen, who is a longtime host of Weekend Edition Sunday on NPR. And it's interesting. The epithet used to be, someone who was good in puzzles was the puzzle king or maybe the puzzle queen. She called me puzzle master, and now everyone calls themselves a puzzle master.
When did your parents realize that it was a real career?
My mother was a writer, and so she was always supportive. She was a creative person, and she was the one who showed me how to submit my puzzle manuscripts to publishers when I was a teenager. So I was very lucky to have my mother, because I don't think most mothers would even know how to do that. My father was a personnel director for R. Donnelley Printing Company, more of a corporate type. And for years and years, he always said puzzles are an avocation, not a vocation. So he thought this would make a nice hobby to be a lawyer or whatever else I wanted to do. But once I started at the New York Times in 1993, he came around and said, okay, I got the sense that he was accepting me by